Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Could you share your "Alright then, I resigned" story, part 8? As a budding chef, I was able to secure an apprenticeship at a very important private members club in London a few years ago. As a chef, you would work from 9 to 9:30 Monday through Friday. Depending on the day, you would have an hour or two break between services. Every other week, you would have an early day, so you would work from 9 to 3. These hours were fantastic, but I live 2 hours away from London. Still, it's okay because my train schedule conflicts with the beginning and ending of my shift. On average, I would get up at 6, go to work at 8:30, take a quick nap, start my shift at 9:30, finish at 3:30, have lunch and a nap until 5:30, return to my train at 9:30, and return home at 12 or 1:30. I was only 18 when I started my first real job, which paid reasonably well for an apprenticeship. The minimum wage for an apprenticeship was £3.30 per hour. I was making £6. I worked a 10-hour workday, which isn't much, but when you factor in travel time, I was working 18 to 25 hours a day, 5 days a week, but I'm young enough to handle it. Then last Christmas, train strikes begin. On the first day of the strikes, I arrived at work at 12:30 and made a commitment to leave early so that I could arrive at work on time regardless of the strikes. My boss, the head chef, agreed but advised me not to put in too much overtime. After 2 months, the strikes are still going strong. I now wake up at 5 and get home at 1 or 2 most days. Additionally, because Christmas is approaching, we've lost our early days and have been working Saturday services, which is exhausting me. This morning, I woke up extremely late at 6:30 after sleeping through 10 alarms. Amazingly, I made it to my train in about 10:30 when my head chef threw me out of the kitchen for sorting the deliveries that had been left for me. When I explained the situation to him, he says, somewhat paraphrasing, "I know the trains are striking, but me and your colleagues all managed to get into work just fine. I get the trains too, and I still make it to work on time every day." He approaches me and demands to know why I'm so late. Now, all of my other co-workers were located in London and were mainly untouched by the strikes. However, he lives an hour north of the city and is entitled to 2 early days off per week because he's the boss. So I replied, "Yes, well, you're not spending 5 hours plus a day traveling to and from work. You said not to kill myself traveling to work." You didn't mean to come across as snarky or angry, but he got off on me again, calling me out and accusing me of being to blame for not being able to find a place to live in London, which surprised me considering he was a recent graduate with no savings and was only earning £6 an hour. After working my morning shift and finishing up, I went to his office during my break and informed him that I was no longer able to work the hours and that I'd be given notice the following day. We then came to an agreement that I would work until the new year and then quit. However, 2 days prior to my last shift, I arrived only 30 minutes late and he stopped me as I was walking into the kitchen. He gave me a sour face, telling me that I should try harder to stick to my shift schedule so that my coworkers wouldn't see me as a quitter. He refused to give me my Christmas bonus, a turkey. Before I was 18, I worked for a recycler plant, the kind of place where people go to discard their old appliances, big cardboard boxes, and glassware. I worked in a group of 3 attendants helping mostly elderly people unload their belongings. On weekends, there would be only the 2 of us. Fairly standard checkbox on the employment application asked, if hired, are there any days in the foreseeable future that you're not available? I'd already RSVP'd to a wedding that was scheduled for about 2 months in the future, so I noted the date and made sure to let the guy who hired me know how important it is that I not be booked for that day. 2 days before the wedding, the guy who is supposed to relieve me in the afternoon says he's going to a concert with his girlfriend the following day, so I'll be covering one of his shifts. I told him that was improbable because I'd already booked the day off before I was hired. They bought tickets after he said he'd have to bring it up with the manager, but he had already received the go-ahead. Became a bit sarcastic with me, so I said, hey, it's not my problem. The day after the wedding, Friday, was remarkably busy with people disposing of old refrigerators for some reason. They just push them off their trucks and roll out, so I just finished lugging the sixth one into the bin. When the manager arrives, he asks me why I feel it's acceptable to inform my coworker that I'm in charge. I informed him that I was confused. He tells me exactly this then. I gave him the day off because I don't care about what we agreed on when I hired you, and he's been here for 3 years. You may choose to work the days you're scheduled by me and no one else, or you can choose to resign, or I could fire you. I was so impressed by this guy's level of a-holery. Not only had he failed to provide me with an updated schedule, but he was also yelling at me while people were dropping off items all around us. I told him that it seems like I was right when I quit. I guess the other guy will be working tomorrow, unless you want to cover his shift, I said in response to his question. Stripped off my overalls and threw them into the glass bin on my way out. I had 2 part-time jobs going on. I worked for one for a year that paid more and had leadership opportunities, and I worked at a dead-end retail job for 8 years. I worked afternoons at the other place and covered the evening shifts at my 8-year job. The retail job completely booked me out of my availability when the schedule was posted the week before Black Friday. I spoke with my boss about finding coverage for all shifts except Friday and Saturday. They assured me they could do what I told them months in advance about what I could work that Friday, but they didn't. Despite the fact that I had it in writing, they didn't care and I was to blame. They then yelled at me for an hour about my availability. I filled the hardest to fill shifts, threatening to cancel the appointment if I didn't show up on time, even though I had informed them a week in advance that I'd be late. When Black Friday rolled around, I was working 18-hour shifts on Friday and Saturday and 12 hours on Sunday between the 2 jobs. I managed to get away from my other job 2 hours early in order to arrive at the retail job on time. Since we had an 18-hour workday, I made the decision to go ask my manager that evening if I could leave the store at closing in order to get an extra hour of sleep. No, they would say, what could be worse? I volunteered to stay an extra 3 hours with them to check in the overnight truck, and the manager told me outright that it was my fault for even asking. After I left for lunch, I never came back. The best choice you've ever made. Tell me a scary story about your HOA, COA, or neighbors, Part 8. When I was younger and living in Florida, our homeowners association had a rule that prohibited cutting down palm trees. To be more specific, we had 4 palm trees outside of our house that were within a distance where they could fall and hit the house. This occurred right around the time that Hurricane Andrew was making its way through the area. In order to cut down all the trees that were located outside of our home, my parents had applied for a permit and 2 of their requests were granted. Those 2 trees were cut down and the other 2 were left standing right outside of my bedroom. We left for Minnesota while the hurricane was raging, and when we returned, one of the trees had fallen on the neighbor's house and the other tree had been struck by lightning. The homeowners association became upset that we did not remove those 2 trees, and we only removed the 2 trees that they had approved. Back when I was a teenager, my family and I lived in a neighborhood that was governed by a homeowners association. After obtaining a driver's license, I was able to drive myself to and from school as well as other locations. On a weekday, I arrive home at approximately 4:30 and my parents are around 5:30 or 6 o'clock. We all stay inside and do whatever we want. In order to get to school the following morning, I leave the house at approximately 8:30. After coming to a complete stop, I make the turn from our cul-de-sac onto the main street and I'm traveling at a speed of approximately 5 miles per hour. I hit a speed bump with such force that I scraped the undercarriage. It was the equivalent of hitting a speed bump, but faster. At a speed of 5 miles per hour, I drove over a speed hump that did not exist the night before and my undercarriage was scraped. Literally overnight, they had installed high-speed bumps measuring between 4 and 5 inches in diameter along the major roads of the neighborhood. There's no prior warning. It would appear that they'd gone around the neighborhood in an effort to get people to sign a document indicating their agreement to these speed bumps. However, the majority of these signatures were from tenants, not homeowners, and as a result, they should not have been allowed to have a say in the matter. Well, it would have been a waste of money to remove them. The fact that they're still there to this day is despite the fact that it took them several weeks to finally concede to lowering them. In Charlotte, North Carolina, I purchased an N-unit condo in a townhome style in 2018. The HOA promised to replace the chimney with a gas fireplace/vent at no cost to me, but instead of fixing it, they removed it. Turns out that the chimney was leaning. They later withdrew it and said that I was responsible for paying the gas installation and gas logs. I'm stuck with a non-working fireplace and no chimney right now. Looking at the townhouse from the back, it just seems off. The large ornamental stucco chimneys on the back of each unit are hidden from view from the front end, and as of right now, my unit is the only one in the neighborhood without one. They're about 15 feet high from the roof. One of the main reasons I purchased the unit was because it had a wood-burning fireplace, which is a very rare feature in modern units. I suppose what I'm really asking is, should I spend the $2,000 to $3,000 installing a gas fireplace, or should I just get rid of it completely? Though I'm concerned about the value of my property, I don't really care either way. Seems a little odd from the back that my apartment is the only one without a chimney. My HOA has really let me down. I can't stop thinking about this incident that happened months ago. I'm just enraged that they would treat me so poorly. I promise never to purchase a condo once more. Just a few years ago, my wife and I relocated to our current residence. During the first few months of our new home, we were able to get along well with our neighbors who live next door. The decision made by those neighbors to construct a fence on my property was the catalyst that led to the termination of our relationship. Getting them to move the fence nearly required filing a lawsuit against them. With the help of the original surveyor, we were able to record a new PLAT, which revealed that the fence had been completed. We went to the community where our HOA is located, and the previous president gave them 48 hours to remove it from our property. During that time and afterward, the neighbors created a Facebook page for our neighborhood in order to spread false information about us and to attempt to turn other neighbors against us. Over the course of several months, they followed us around calling us names, and one of them told us to F off. They also engaged in stare-downs, went to each neighbor in our section and told them nasty lies about us in an effort to discourage them from wanting to befriend us. The strategy was successful for a brief period of time. However, after that, people gave us a chance and got to know us better. As a result of this shift in perspective, our neighbors began engaging in other activities within the neighborhood, which led everyone else to disliking them as well. Negative interactions of some kind are experienced by the majority of residents in the neighborhood with these neighbors. That brings me to the following part. A security camera system was installed all around our house. Not only was this done to safeguard our property, but it was also done to take a picture of them in the event that they committed an unlawful act. As soon as the cameras were turned on, they became very agitated. An extensive collection of wind chimes was installed by them along the boundaries of their property. It's the same PL that we both do. Both inside and outside our house, we're able to hear them. They even installed high beam lights and pointed their floodlights into our home. I apologize for not knowing the correct wording to describe those lights. Their floodlight was pointed into our home. In addition to the fact that they are extremely bright, both of these things are causing a disturbance in our house. The past 4 years have been spent dealing with this bullying behavior that's been occurring for us. The light and the chimes are only a small part of it. We are absolutely sick of it. I've spoken to the HOA in order to get some guidance because it's stated in their governing documents that chimes are not allowed to be loud enough to disturb other neighbors. I also mentioned the light because there are regulations concerning those things. In response, the Homeowners Association stated that they've already taken action and that everything will be fixed in the not-too-distant future. In general, the neighbors did not fix anything, but the HOA fined them heavily. So much so that they moved out, thank God. Side note, some background information on the neighbors is as follows. Both of them are retired women who moved from the north to the south over the years. They do not accept responsibility for any of the actions they've taken, and as a result, they've caused a great deal of disruption within this neighborhood. They are 2 women in their late 60s who behave like bullies who are 13 years old, according to a fellow neighbor who provided me with the best description of my neighbors. If you want to watch the part 7, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.